Hey guys, my name is Niclas Huschenbeth and I'm welcoming you to this new series of mine which is called My Best Games. So my own personal best games I've played throughout my chess career. And I would like to start this series with a game I consider to be probably the best one I've played, or maybe at least the most beautiful one I have played. And I played this game against Grandmaster Vitali Golod, who's a strong player from Israel. And back then in 2008 we played a match over 6 games, so 6 games against the same opponent, and in this match I played this specific game. So let's go ahead and get started. So I was white and I start with e4 as I usually do, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. Now maybe the first slight surprise here, queen b6. The queen comes out early in the game to ask that guy here in the center, the knight, what is he gonna do, and white actually has to retreat this knight because bishop e3 obviously runs into queen takes b2, so knight b3 is kind of forced. c3 is also not a move you would like to play here because the knight usually develops to c3. So knight b3, and this is the whole idea of black's early queen b6. He later wants to play his queen back to c7, and then he just says, okay, I use this tempo, queen b6, to place your knight a little bit worse than it was before, because in the center on d4 is really the optimal square for the knight. This whole system, by the way, is called the Krivas system, named after a Greek player, Efstratios Krivas, who invented this whole line, this idea, and made it quite popular. Alright, knight c3, e6, and it looks obvious kind of to play bishop e3 here and to attack the queen, but well, black wants to play his queen back to c7 anyway, so it doesn't really help white that much. And I had a look at this line previously, and it seems that queen e2 is quite an interesting approach here to prepare queenside castle here. And you see here that now I can also develop my bishop to d2, which is maybe a better square also because I'm preventing black to take on c3 and destroying my pawn structure. Okay, castle, and now a3. And here black pretty much has two options, either taking on c3, which my opponent did in the game, or playing the bishop back to e7. Well, then I also castle, and here maybe the most ambitious approach is to play with d5, where I actually had some games in the past and didn't respond correctly. I had 2 games, I think. Once I played e takes d5, which is not good, just opening up files and diagonals against my king, and once I played g3, which is also a horrible move. Or was it g3 at this point? I'm not even quite sure, but white should just simply play e5, and after knight d7, f4, we have this kind of French structure here, and I believe that white has good attacking prospects. He can play the queen to h5, maybe bishop to d3, and there are oftentimes problems arising around the black king. Okay, so let's get back to the game. My opponent took on c3, and the idea here behind this taking on c3 is that now black wants to play on the black squares. So here he obviously needs to do something against the threat of bishop takes f6 and opening up his king, so he has to play e5. And this is the whole idea of this setup. He gives up his black squared bishop and now plays e5 and d6 to also restrict my bishop on c3. But still, white maybe sometimes has options to play with f4, and in general I can't really believe this whole setup for black, giving up this bishop early in the game and staying behind in development also. And in this game we will see it doesn't really quite work out for black. Long castle, And now the next move is the beginning of black's problems here. He played rook d8. Well, what about d6 here? It doesn't quite work. Black would like to solve his problems tactically, but I can take on d6 and then knight d4 was the idea behind it. But now bishop takes d4 and white is simply winning back the exchange here and is up a pawn. Or let's see concretely how that works out here. Knight takes e4, rook e1, and knight d6 and bishop d3, and both these pawns are hanging and black cannot conveniently protect them both, so white is going to win a pawn again and have a clearly superior position. Has a clearly superior position. Alright, in the past I've had a game where my opponent played rook e8, also a game I analyzed on my channel, in German though, against Georgios Solidis, another Greek player. Maybe rook e8 is the best try here. Play the rook to e8, and now black is looking maybe to play d6, because now the rook is not hanging on f8 anymore. Right? It's on e8 now. What happens if black simply plays the queen back to c7 to prepare d6? Now I can play g4 quickly, and you can see I can further restrict black's pieces and start maybe in the future a kingside attack. So that looks good for white too. Alright, let's check the game. Rook d8. Obviously he's playing to play d6 or maybe even d5, so I'm just preventing it altogether by playing my rook to d6. And I still knew this position. It was still, I had looked at it at home, and it's quite dangerous here for black. So you might ask yourself, why not now knight d4? After all, the rook is not on f8 anymore, so there's no pin on this diagonal, but there's an attack on another diagonal, and right here, and now black is even losing a whole piece, so that just doesn't work at all. So we're back here. My opponent played queen c7, and now we see this whole idea of rook d6. White is sacrificing the exchange on f6. And I already had prepared this as well. G takes f6, queen g4 check. So what is white getting in return for the exchange sacrifice? For one, open black king. Obviously the pawn structure is destroyed in front of the black king. And as well, white is having a lead in development, and this is also, we're also going to notice this in the game. Alright. So my opponent played king h8. Maybe king f8 was another option here, but even then I should be better here. Queen h4. And now king e7. And bishop c4. And here after d6 there's a nice little tactical trick. Bishop takes f7. Exploiting the fact that after king takes, queen takes a7, the queen on c7 is unprotected and will be lost. So after bishop takes f7 I win this pawn, and have this beautiful bishop on d5, and I'm looking forward to opening up the position against the black king by playing f4, and very good position for white. Okay, king h8, queen h4. Now my opponent played queen d6, which looks kind of unnatural, because the queen is just standing in the way of the pawn on d7, and black is further having problems to develop. In another game continued with d6 here, but well, now white is obviously winning this pawn, and again with f4 trying to activate this bishop on c3. The game continues with queen e7. Black is giving back another pawn here on e5, so now white is having 2 pawns plus the exchange, plus the piece for the exchange. So material wise he's already fine, plus he has the 2 bishops and his pieces are well placed, so he's clearly better here in this position. Okay, queen d6. So it's funny now, I kind of knew that f4 would be the right move here, but for some reason I refrained from playing it. I played bishop c4, which is also good. The position in general is just good for white. So let's have a quick look at f4. So one possible move here is rook g8, a suggestion by Niebuhr, who played this line with the white pieces. But now g4, just getting these pawns rolling pretty much. Queen e7, and after bishop c4 we'd actually transpose to the game, but also bishop b5 is interesting here, and now d6, h3, and white again has just excellent compensation here for the exchange. King d7, rook f1, a6, just a possible line here I would like to show you very quickly. Bishop takes c6, b takes c6, f takes e5, d takes e5, and now bishop b4. The queen needs to still protect the pawn on f6, so queen d8, and now knight a5, and the knight is threatening to take on c6, and if bishop d7, then knight b7, and now the queen cannot protect the pawn on f6 anymore, and well, black is just lost. But I remember in the game I couldn't really see a way to continue after queen e7 here. But here also bishop b5 is very strong, and there are always ideas on this diagonal to play, to take on e5, and then black is having problems. So here we see a similar line we have just seen. White takes here and takes on e5. Black cannot take back with the f pawn because the queen is hanging, so d takes e5, and now bishop b4 is again very unpleasant for black because he has problems protecting his pawn, so he has to play c5, but now knight takes c5 and rook e8 now, knight d3, queen e6, rook f1. You can see all white's pieces are playing into the attack, and white is clearly better in this position. Alright, let's get back to the game. Play bishop c4, which is also quite a natural move, of course, developing the last minor piece and attacking a pawn on f7. No, he played not queen e7, he played rook g8. If queen e7, then f4, of course again d6, and now I can simply close up the position here, and it will be very similar to what we will see in the game. And it's quite advantageous for me here to close it, because I'm further restricting black's pieces. You can see his bishop is also not having any perspective, and the queen is just stuck here on e7, protecting this pawn, and it cannot move. The queen cannot move at all, because if this pawn is lost, really black is having a lot of trouble. So the game continued with rook g8 instead of queen e7, and now I play g4, just pushing the pawns because I would like to attack opposite, and this is the only way to go. Queen e7, f4, and it's just so difficult to play for black. And I would say we do a shortcut here, and I will continue in next video. We'll do a shortcut here, and I'll see you in the next part. See you then.